I'm so excited to have today Gabrielle in my podcast as a guest. We have a really special together. And when I'm saying special is not just using the word, but it's just because I mean it. We met in a beautiful way, but we are going to get into this. First, I'm going to describe her a little bit because she's like a multifaceted human being. She does a ton of things and she's awesome to all of them. And she's a niche expert and personal brand coach who helps CEOs find their niche, communicate their value, and get their businesses back into alignment. Gabrielle has supported over 150 women all over the world find their niche and live out their true soul purpose. Welcome, Gabby. I'm so happy to have you here.
That
How
was
are
quite a
you?
welcome. Thank you so much.
And tell me a little bit of let's start with your old money story. What beliefs did you inherited from your parents, from the people around you growing up? What was your old money story?
Oh my gosh, this is such a doozy. So, to give a little background here, everyone, I hired Andrea, when was it? January of
Mm.
2022, because I just felt like I was at a financial plateau in my business. And I am a journaler. I feel like I was pretty in tune with myself, but I knew, and I got this download many times through the universe, that the work that I had done was on a conscious level. And I completed that gold star, check mark. I needed subconscious help. I needed subconscious help. And so I, long story short, found Andrea and started working with her. And excuse me, I wanted to rebuild my relationship with money. I did not like my relationship with money. I did not know how to have a respectful relationship with money. And that does not mean that like I didn't have a savings, I didn't save money, I blew all my money. It wasn't anything like that. What I now know, and if you were to ask me this back in January, I would have had no idea how to answer that question. But what I now know is that I deeply struggled to receive. And I
Mm.
remember talking to somebody and they're like, oh, it's kind of like the way that you receive a compliment. And at that, like I worked on that, because when somebody would say, oh, I love your dress, I'd be like, thanks, it's from Target, it was $15, like whatever, instead of just saying thank you. And so for me, it was really working on that receiving and understand my worthiness around money. I tied my worth to how much money my business was making because I put that on my shoulders, right? I said, like, my worthiness depends on how much money I make. And I remember I was talking to my therapist, right? My talk therapy. And I said to her, it just doesn't, I do that, but it doesn't feel good to me because I don't treat anyone else who may make less money than me any differently. I don't treat them less than. So why am I treating myself less than? And in good old universe fashion, I wasn't learning this lesson very well. And so, there was a point in my business where they really stripped me of any and all money. I was down to nothing. It felt like I was like standing like naked in the street just for everyone to look at. I felt so vulnerable. And, I didn't make money in my business for the first 6 months. And, there are times where I remember there was one time in particular I had to ask my fiance for a little help, and that killed me. It killed me
Mm.
because I said I would never, ever, ever let myself get to that point. And I did. But what I didn't realize in that moment was that it wasn't so much like the receiving money of him, it was the asking for help. So
Mm.
through this journey with rebuilding my relationship with money, I've uncovered so many wounds. Like, I feel like we'd be on this podcast for 10 hours if I went through every single one of them. So many wounds around it. But long story, long answer to your question was very much receiving, feeling worthy of receiving and deserving of it and feeling like I was enough. I could just keep adding them on there.
And asking for help, which is another
Right.
huge one. Like these
Oh,
three core wounds, like are so common and are like really connected to each other. Like if you don't feel good enough, then you will not feel good enough to ask for help, and you will try to do it all by yourself, and you will have the independent woman syndrome and like lonely ranger syndrome when you're trying to not tell anyone and share your story and receive help. And again, it's connected to receiving because you're close to receiving. So from the core wound of not feeling good enough, all these other facets in our businesses like rises. And when we heal that core wound, it's when we start to unblock our potential and our manifestations with money and so on. Thank you for trying to comprise your story in a few sentences. I know it's not easy to do so, and I was telling you in the beginning that we are going to share with you how we met. So she bought some sessions with me. I then discovered that she's really intuitive, that she has so many amazing gifts, because in my sessions, we don't only you look at the blocks, but we look on the gifts as well. So
Mhm.
we can, okay, we rewire the blocks, but what we add instead? We have so many new places now to add new traits and new qualities. So I discovered that she's really intuitive and she's awesome on the business level. And I hired her. So then I started to work with her, and she was my guide in the business realms and helped me with setting a business on the ground. Because before meeting her, like, my strategy was posting every other day on social media and not having like a plan or a product suite. And she helped me like from the funnel creation until the product creation, and getting really clear on my messaging and on my ideal client and everything, basically all the business stuff. And it was really beautiful that I discovered that before working and investing in a business coach, I had my own money blocks. I was the same, like thinking that I can do it all by myself and I will handle the business situation and I will learn in time how to have a successful business. But years were passing by and time doesn't bring you any more knowledge that you have in the present moment, or it brings you, but it takes a really huge time to get into a point where your business is successful. So it was a beautiful dance between us, me being the healer first time and then she being my guide in the business realms. And it's beautiful to witness each other's transformations. And tell me why, what, you like the healing you did and what for you was the subconscious reprogramming and the work we did together. And what happened after you did the healing? And of course we are doing the healing for the rest of our lives, like it's a constant work. But how did you change, how things shifted for you after you did the core, you healed the core wounds and understood your patterns and your blocks? How did you start to feel in your business and how did your business change?
Well, the first thing, and I want to talk about this because I feel like it's not a lot of people do, even though you right away were like, yes, that's normal, is I slept a lot. I was very tired to the point where I was like, is something wrong with me? And that was hard for me because in before all of this, I really said, I will only make money if I work really hard. That could not be further from the truth, right? It's
Mm.
attracting, right? When I'm in receiving mode, I receive. And it's knowing and or it's going and knowing that. So first I slept a ton. And then and as you said, the healing doesn't really end. I just continue to really lean into that. But I had this new self-awareness that you can't put a price tag on, right? When something would come up in my business, I'd be like, oh, back in the day, I used to think this, right? Until Andrea and I subconsciously uncovered this, right? And so, this self awareness that it gave me, I know for a fact that I would not be where I am in my business right now if it weren't for doing that. I would still be back in square one because I was able to get to know myself on a such a deeper level. And this is a bizarre story, but I'm going to share it with you guys. And Andrea, I know you're going to probably smile at this. We were doing one of our hypnotherapy sessions. And so my business name, it's Gabrielle Laura. My middle name is Laura. That's not my last name. And I was named after my grandmother, my dad's mom, who passed away 9 weeks after I was born in a freak accident. And I never got to know her, but I've always felt this deep connection to her. And Andrea and I were doing a hypnosis once, and it was me standing there with my grandmother. And she was talking to me and embracing me and hugging me. And I literally felt like that was in real life. And it was such a beautiful, eye opening moment because I knew the second that I started my business that I wanted to honor her in my business name. And now I understand on a conscious level why I really wanted to do that. It's because she really passed on like her intuitive gifts to me. So much of what I do in my business, for everyone listening, it's me using my intuition. So if you follow me, you will hear me say a lot like you have to own the unique gift that you have, your uniqueness. Every single person has one. Mine is my intuition. My intuition was passed on to me from my grandmother. And knowing that, it helps me own my uniqueness more, something that I preach. Having that knowing helps me practice what I preach 10 times more. That was just one of the tiny shifts that happened in my business, right? And that was major. That was a major shift. But that in the scale of what Andrea and I accomplished together, that was just like a single piece of the pie. I learned how to receive. I learned how to stop. I learned how to take a break. I learned how to turn it off. I learned how to implement boundaries. I learned how to play hooky during the week and go to the beach. And then I learned that when I check my phone, I'm going to have an inquiry, right? I would always like go do that. And then I would send Andrea a screenshot of like my honeybook inquiry and I would just be like, LOL. It should be like, exactly, like that is what happens. And that is invaluable. Like you can't, I can't put a price tag on that because that has shifted the trajectory, sorry, that's a mouthful, for the rest of my business. I will now take this skill into everything that I do and everything I learn and what I preach to my people. Healing is an inevitable part of business, and not a lot of people talk about it. But the more that you get in tune with yourself and the more that you truly tap into who you are at your soul's level, the more successful your business will be in whatever that word success looks like for you. And like it just helped me with that beyond belief.
You're so sweet. Thank you for sharing with me and with the listeners with so many beautiful details. And I love how I can feel the switch from as most of women entrepreneurs, when we start our business, we are more in the masculine and we we need to do
That
the
was it.
work and we need to hustle and we need to establish the structure. But then even with all the strategies in place, and this is what you teach in your programs as well, you can have all the strategies, but if they are not aligned for you and if you don't also surrender and take a step back and allow space for the universe to co-create with you and receive the opportunities, like you'll still feel blocked with all the strategies and all the mentors in the world. And such a beautiful lesson to learn, like surrendering. I'm so proud of you. Like I want to cry, but not in the podcast. After the podcast,
I appreciate it.
I have a tear in my eye, but okay. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing with us, and I'm sure that you will bring a lot of value in a lot of women's lives. And I'm curious, how was, because I never asked, and I'm like now realize, how did you thought of creating a coaching business?
Oh my gosh, I just wanted to help women. And it's so funny because I always share the story of when I started my business. My fiance and I were just laid off from our jobs. The world was like ending because this was like April 2020. So this was like COVID craziness. All the grocery stores had no chicken or eggs, any of that stuff. And it was just like catastrophic. And then we lose our jobs. And I remembered that feeling of having the rug pulled out from underneath me and just saying, I will never, ever, ever allow this to happen to me or my family ever again. And I want to empower every single woman out there to have that same knowledge and knowing. I've known since I was a child, since I was a little girl, that I was going to run my own business. And the problem was, as I went through public education system, I was not taught in the way that I retain information. I did not get good grades. I got into college by the skin of my teeth. I had people tell me I was stupid. I truly felt stupid. I could not get into business school to save my life. And I look back on that, and that was such a blessing because I know anything I learned then, I wouldn't even take with me now because it's all intuitive. But I put off starting my business for so long because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel deserving. I didn't feel like I was enough. But I always had this 0.0001% that was like, you are a badass and your success is inevitable. And so I went to the 9 to 5 life for a while, then was absolutely miserable. And I just knew this is not for me and I needed a way out. So I started getting curious about starting a business. January 2020, I literally was on my hands and knees begging the universe for something. And I was not spiritual then. I was certainly not religious then, anything like that. Religious isn't something that I align with, but the spiritual piece, none of that. I didn't pray. I didn't talk to God, like none of that. And something in me just said, universe, please, I beg you. And just a few weeks later, away with my job. And then for 6 months, I didn't make a single dollar. And that's when my healing journey really came about, right? And then it all came together. And so, again, a very long winded answer, but I wanted to provide that detail for your people and knowing that this wasn't an overnight journey for me. I am not one of those overnight success stories. And I don't think many people are, honestly. And I think that's the beauty of the journey, is learning how to work and navigate and not let that resistance stop you, but learning how to work with it and get to know yourself on a whole new level. And so that's what I wanted to do with women. There are so many women that I meet who are playing small, who aren't owning what they bring to the table, who aren't owning what they have. And me being able to help them figure that out and bring it to life, like I pinch myself every day. I'm like, I could freaking cry right now. I just feel like I'm truly living the thing that I, as a little girl, dreamed of.
Mm.
And I want every woman in the world to have that experience. That is my drive.
I'm sure that your inner girl, Laura, the little Laura inside of you,
Yes.
is really happy for you succeeding, and
Yeah.
she's really proud of you. And I love how you turn your own healing story in a tool to help other women. And I feel like this is the core theme for all the women, powerful women entrepreneurs that I worked with, and I also interviewed in my podcast, is that they took their challenges, as you say, and I love it, how they navigate their messy middle and they transform it into a mission, into a passion, into a business. And it's like such an empowering way to go through life, instead of being the victim and hide in our corner and just eat ice cream and lay under the covers all day. You're like, okay, doing that as well for a few days or maybe weeks sometimes, and you're crying on the floor and all of that, but then you're taking that lesson and you're okay, I don't want other women to go through the same, so I'm going to start a business and help them to have an easier journey ahead.
Mhm.
And if you would like give an advice to a woman that's in her messy middle right now, and to a woman or to an entrepreneur, not only women but also men, like what would you advise to navigate easier the messy middle in their businesses? And also describe a little bit what you see this messy middle, how you describe it.
Yeah, so I would describe the messy middle as just like the parts of your business where you're just kind of walking through the mud. Things might not feel very good. Things to you may not be working out, right? And you start questioning what the hell you're doing and all of those things. Looking back now, I wish that I would have called out. I wish I would have been more general in my speaking to myself, because I would be like, this is going to be my month of a $10,000 month. And then those 6 months, I wouldn't book a single client. And I got so down on myself. But if I instead just sat there and said, I really like the idea of abundance, I really like the thought of helping other women and
Mm.
appreciating what I did have in front of me versus harping on what I did not have. And a big reason of me harping on what I did not have was social media. I consumed so much of everyone hitting $1 million, all these big wins, and me so badly wanting that, because again, it's like my intuition just knew that my success was inevitable. But instead of focusing on that internal knowing, I focused on everyone else's journey and how it wasn't happening for me. And that's why it did not happen for me for a very long time, right? And it was the
Mm.
second that I shifted my perspective there and I focused on what is it that I feel good at? Like, or what is it that is going well in my business, I should say, and in my life? What abundance have I received today? Right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
morning, it was before 9 a.m. I had already gone for a run. I let both of my dogs exercise. They were running at the park, just being dogs, rolling in mud piles, getting all messy. The other one was playing with his ball, happy as a clam. I had somebody buy a workbook. I'm just sitting there like, this is abundance. The sun is shining. The grass is fluffy that I'm walking on. My dogs are happy. I kissed my future husband goodbye. Like that is abundance. I
Mm-hmm.
could have focused on the 5 billion other things that I could probably find something to focus on there, but instead it's what I have. Now in my business, when I want to call in more clients, I show deep gratitude to the clients that I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Deep gratitude versus looking for all the different ways of everyone else's 500K launch strategies to get other clients. I focus instead on who do I have now? What wins can I celebrate with them? How can I sit in deep appreciation for that? Because I've learned a lot more about the law of attraction. And when I do that, it does not mean that next minute I get a client, but it starts come flowing into my reality a lot, and it is such a beautiful thing to witness, and having that self-empoweredness that Andreas helped me have, like, made that a reality. So focus on what is going well, because you have the option to focus on the 10 things that aren't going wrong, right? You can focus on the 10 things that are going well, but that one thing that's going wrong, if you shift all your focus onto that, the 10 things that are going well are going to start going wrong as well.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what you have. You have the power of that perception, and lean into that. And if you're sitting here like, I'm in debt, I have no money, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent, I have been in your shoes, let me tell you. Credit card debt, I have been in your shoes. Focus on what is going well. Focus on the fact that you have been able to swipe that credit card, right? And be able to purchase what you've purchased. Focus on the fact that in that moment you thought that purchase was correct. In that moment,
Mm-hmm.
you said, I'm going for the gusto, I'm living large. Celebrate that. Quit beating yourself up about it, right? Celebrate the fact now that you said, this debt, it doesn't feel so good to me. So I'm really curious about how I can get rid of it. You're not going in with judgment and deep expectation. You're living curiously. And so much of that just helps it all come to you and it all makes sense. Like, we are all powerful manifestors. And the more that you lean into that, it happens for you. But start by celebrating and just looking at those tiny wins, going to check your mail. Like, I'm so grateful. Like, I have the moment in my day to go out and check my mail and read through it, right? Just the little things that we take for granted, start focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so beautiful. We are all powerful manifestors. Such a deep mantra. I love it. And that's exactly how I see it. Like healing brings us choice and brings us the freedom of choosing between, instead of focusing on scarcity, focusing on gratitude, instead of, panicking and worrying and starting when we wake up and getting into the hustling mode and working, overworking when we don't have the money, instead of taking a step back and regrouping and like brainstorming other ideas how you can make money, instead of going into the rat race and just overwhelm yourself and get into another burnout. So that's healing. It's the power of choice, and I love that so much. And tell our listeners now, share with our listeners, Gabby, what, first of all, how is your beautiful, what work are you offering to the women and to your clients right now? And what type of offerings do you have? I know that you have one-to-one and a group coaching and also a workbook. So you have different price range and different types of services. So I'm really curious to hear about your offerings.
Absolutely. So I help anyone from like the aspiring entrepreneurial phase all the way to established CEOs. So for the established CEOs, I have a 3-month one-on-one program with me where we get you back into alignment. This is for the CEOs who are feeling stuck, who are feeling burnt out, who are looking for their next chapter, right? I help you discover what that chapter is, and then together we make it come to life. That could be a new division of your business, a pivoted business, or just realignment in your current business. I also have a group program slash like online course slash one-on-one thing I am revamping. You could see that on my website. It's called the Aligned Brand Accelerator. It's for people who want to start personal brands. And then also, I have my signature niche clarity intensives that people love. That is for more of like the newer or aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to figure out what their niche is, what uniqueness they bring to the table, and how to communicate their value. So, if anyone is interested in any of that, come on over to my Instagram and send me a DM.
Oh my God, then I highly, highly recommend you do that. Like even the niche clarity intensive, which is 90 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have clarity or 3 months clarity in your business. It offers like such a long range um view, bird's eye view upon your business with your messaging, your ideal client, your strategy. And this wasn't supposed to be like a podcast where we promote our services so we can have more clients. We are talking about this naturally right now because it's like I tried it and I don't say something about something I didn't try.
Right.
So, and I also was in the Align Coach Accelerator, which is now Align Brand
Yes.
Accelerator, right?
Yes. So I'm
Yeah.
shifting it a bit because it was very geared towards coaches, and now I'm just making it more inclusive to consultants and content creators and all that.
All entrepreneurs basically.
Yeah.
And it's really good that you're doing that because you offer the possibility to more creators to come into your life. And in 3 months, you can really have, like, I have posts planned for the rest of the year. I have a coaching practice really set in place. I have my programs. Like Gabby helped me in the Align Brand Accelerator with my program, with my offerings, with sales strategies that feel good for me. She also motivates me. Like what I loved the most is not only that the things you learn, but also her really warm energy. And if you're watching the YouTube show, you can see her angelic smile and you can feel her genuine desire to help you. And she like motivate me to start this podcast, to post more often on my YouTube because I was really focused on Instagram and I was not having so many clients and I was in the point of wanting to give it all up. So instead she really shifted my perspective and she like focused the light on my gifts and focused on the fact that I can do my hypnosis and I can share them on YouTube and I can do a podcast and share my work on other platforms. So I really recommend you go and look on her services. I'm going to add her links in the description box. And I'm also going to add the link for my freebie, which I'm offering this month, a free training on how to identify your money blocks because awareness is the first step in shifting our money reality. And sometimes the blocks that we think we have around money are not the ones that really blocks
Yep.
us. So like we think is like, okay, it's because I procrastinate, but that procrastination in fact hides something else underneath it. Maybe you're scared of your success, or maybe you fear that you'll sabotage your progress. So that's why in the how to identify your money blocks, we do subconscious tools to help you really get to the core of your money blueprint. So thank you so much, Gabby, for being with me today here. It was a pleasure to have you and have this free flow discussion with you. Thank you as well for listening to us. And do you have any closing thought, Gabby?
Thank you so much, seriously, Andrea, for having me on, and for everyone listening. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and really celebrate that in yourself. Like, it is abundant that you have the ability to listen to this, right? Like, really sit in that, celebrate that, and I am cheering every single one of you on. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yay! We are doing a celebration party for you for listening to this podcast. I know you had a lot of value from our discussion together. So, see you on the next episode. Bye.